I was 68 years old when I learned that loneliness isn't the absence of people around you. It's the absence of someone who truly sees you. And that Christmas Eve, walking through Union Station Mall in Chicago, surrounded by thousands of rushing bodies, blinking lights, and Christmas songs echoing through the marble columns, I was invisible, completely invisible. My name is Helen Crawford, widow for 12 years. Mother of 2 adult children who live in cities where Christmas never fits into their schedules. Grandmother of grandchildren I only know through photos on Facebook, posted between trips to resorts and dinners at expensive restaurants. I had money. A lot of money. My husband, Richard, was one of the most respected magnates in Illinois. When he died, he left a fortune that could support 3 generations. But money doesn't hug. Money doesn't call on Christmas to ask how you're doing. Money doesn't fill a table. So every year, I did the same pathetic ritual. I went to that fine toy store at the mall, picked out beautiful gifts, wrapped them in gold paper and satin ribbons, and took them home. I kept them in a locked room. Gifts for grandchildren who would never come. Gifts no one would open. It was my way of pretending I still mattered to someone. That day, December 24th, at 5:30 in the afternoon, I was holding yet another wrapped box. A handcrafted teddy bear. Very expensive, made by hand in Germany. For whom? I didn't even know. I was simply wrapping the lie that I had a family waiting for me. That's when I saw her, sitting on a dark wooden bench near the central platform, her little legs swinging in the air, far too short to reach the floor. She wore a pale pink coat worn on the sleeves and held an old doll against her chest. Beside her, lying like a silent guardian, was a huge dog, a golden retriever or something similar, with golden fur that shimmered under the mall lights. The dog had its eyes fixed on the crowd as if it were watching, protecting. But the girl was alone. I looked around. No one stopped. No one looked. Everyone rushed by, carrying shopping bags, talking on their phones, laughing, complaining, existing inside their own bubbles. And there, on that island of loneliness in the middle of the Christmas chaos, was a child. I approached slowly. I didn't want to scare her. The dog lifted its head, stared at me for a second far too long, and then relaxed, as if evaluating me, as if it knew. "Hi, sweetheart," I said, trying to smile as gently as possible. "Are you alone?" The girl lifted her face. She couldn't have been more than 7, maybe 8. Straight brown hair, huge dark eyes with that wet shine of someone holding back tears. She looked at me as if she had been waiting for me. "My mom said someone kind would find me," she answered, her voice small but strangely calm. "I think it's you." A chill ran down my spine. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Something I couldn't name. "Where is your mother, honey?" She didn't answer. She just held out a crumpled piece of paper toward me. A note. I took it with trembling hands. The handwriting was rushed, slanted, written in blue ink that failed in some parts. "Her name is Cassie. Please take care of her for now. I'm sorry." That was it. No phone number, no last name, no address. Just a desperate plea scribbled hastily by someone who clearly had no more options. "Cassie," I repeated the name, feeling its weight in my mouth. "That's your name?" She nodded. "And this is Moose," she said, pointing to the dog, who wagged his tail once, like a formal introduction. I looked around again. I searched for cameras, security guards, any sign this might be some cruel prank. But there was nothing. Just the girl, the dog, the note, and me. "How long have you been here?" I asked, bending down to her eye level. "I don't know," she murmured. "A long time. People walk by, but no one stops." My heart cracked in 2. "Have you eaten anything?" She shook her head. Moose sniffed, as if agreeing this was an urgent problem. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police, social services, someone. But Cassie grabbed my hand. Her tiny cold fingers squeezed mine with surprising strength. "Please," she whispered. "Don't leave me here. She said you would take care of me. Please." And in that moment, something inside me, something that had been dead for years, woke up. I put my phone away. "Are you hungry?" She nodded. "Then let's go. Let's get out of here." If this story touches your heart, if you see yourself in any part of it, or if you simply want more women to find narratives that remind us life never stops surprising us, please subscribe to the channel now and leave your like. It's not just a button. It's a hug you give me, a way of saying we're together searching for the best in life. And it helps me keep bringing stories that make us feel alive, no matter our age. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We bought sandwiches at a mall cafe. Cassie ate slowly, chewing each bite as if it were the last. Moose got half of my own sandwich, because how do you deny food to a dog who looks at you with those "I've been protecting this child for hours" eyes? While she ate, I watched her. Every detail. The way she held the napkin with excessive care. The posture too straight for such a small child. The way she didn't waste a crumb. There was something there, something that screamed, "This girl learned not to ask for anything." "Cassie," I ventured, in the softest voice I could manage, "can you tell me where your mother went?" She stopped chewing, set the sandwich down, fixed her eyes on the table. She said she needed to put me somewhere safe. She said someone would find me, someone good, and that I needed to be brave. But why didn't she stay with you? Why didn't she wait to talk to this person? Cassie took a deep breath. Her little hands trembled. She was scared. Scared of what? Silence. A silence that weighed tons. The kind of silence that carries secrets a child should never have. "Of him," she finally said, almost in a whisper. "Of my father." I felt the blood freeze in my veins. Before I could ask anything else, the mall loudspeakers announced closing time, 15 minutes. Stores would start lowering their gates, the lights would dim, and I stood there with a child I didn't know, a giant dog, and a note asking me to take care of her for now. There were only two options: take Cassie to the police, explain everything, hand her over to the system, and hope for the best. Or I looked at her. Cassie stared back at me with those deep eyes, far too old for her age. Moose pressed his nose against my leg as if begging me. "Do you want to come to my house tonight?" I heard my own voice ask, as if someone else were speaking through me. "Tomorrow we'll figure everything out. But tonight you stay with me." Her little face lit up. A tiny, timid smile bloomed on her lips. "Can I bring Moose?" "Of course you can." She held my hand. Moose stood up and walked beside us, glued to Cassie like a furry shadow. And so, on Christmas Eve, at 68 years old, I took home a girl I didn't know and a dog the size of a pony. And for the first time in more than a decade, my house was about to have life inside it. And you? Have you ever done something impulsive that completely changed the course of your day or your life? Tell me in the comments. I want to know. The Crawford Mansion was in Evanston, 40 minutes by car from downtown Chicago. It was one of those old Victorian houses with 3 floors, 12 bedrooms, a library no one used, and gardens tended by a gardener I saw once a month. Richard loved that house. He said it was the symbol of everything he had built. For me, after he was gone, it became a cold mausoleum full of echoes. When I opened the front door, Cassie stopped in the entryway. Her wide eyes scanned the massive hall, the crystal chandelier, the mahogany staircase, the paintings on the walls. The Christmas tree I had asked someone to put up, more out of obligation than desire, glowed in the corner of the room, absurdly large and lonely. "You live here? Alone?" she asked, her voice filled with awe. "I do," I answered, taking off my coat. "It's far too big, I know." Moose walked in without hesitation, sniffed everything, circled the Persian rug in the living room twice, and dropped himself in front of the unlit fireplace as if he owned the place. But then something strange happened. He suddenly lifted his head, ears perked, staring at the front door. Still. Tense. "What is it, Moose?" Cassie approached the dog and stroked his golden fur. He relaxed a little, but stayed alert. "Is he always like this?" I asked. "Only when—" She stopped mid-sentence. "Only sometimes." I took Cassie to one of the guest rooms on the second floor. It was the coziest one. Delicate floral wallpaper, a canopy bed, a reading chair by the window. I opened the closet, grabbed extra blankets, soft pillows, and prepared everything with a level of care I didn't know I still had in me. "You can sleep here tonight. Tomorrow we'll look at clothes and things like that. For now, take a hot bath, and then we'll have dinner, okay?" She nodded, but before I left, she called me. "Helen?" "Yes. Do you have a lock on the door?" The question caught me off guard. It chilled my blood. "I do, on the main doors. And an alarm, too. Can you leave it on?" "Of course, sweetheart." I tried to smile, but my heart was pounding unevenly. "I'll turn it on right now." While Cassie took a bath, I went down to the kitchen and activated the security system, something I rarely did. After all, who would bother breaking into the home of a lonely widow on Christmas Eve? But that little girl was afraid, truly afraid, and that was enough for me to lock every door and check every window. I made pasta with tomato sauce, garlic toast, even a simple salad. I set the kitchen table, which was almost never used, with real plates, cloth napkins, and a pitcher of cold water. And for the first time in years, I lit Christmas candles. The house gained a soft, warm glow. Cassie came downstairs wearing the same pink coat and the same clothes from before, but her wet hair was brushed back. She carried a sketchbook under her arm and a colored pencil case. But what caught my attention was something else. She had rolled up her coat sleeves, and I could clearly see the marks. They weren't scratches from a fall. They were finger marks, as if someone had grabbed those small arms far too tightly. I pretended not to see. For now. "What's that?" I asked, pointing at the sketchbook, trying to lighten the moment. "My mom told me to never forget my notebook. She said it's my voice when I can't talk." We sat at the table. She ate with appetite, but paused now and then to look out the kitchen window, as if expecting to see someone outside. Moose lay between us, strategically positioned so he could see both the door and Cassie. "You draw?" I asked, trying to distract her. She nodded. "May I see?" Cassie hesitated for a second, but then opened the notebook. She flipped through a few pages until she found a specific drawing and turned the notebook toward me. It was me, a portrait of me, drawn with delicate strokes, astonishingly precise for a child. She had captured my tired eyes, the way my hair fell over my shoulder, even the small worry line between my eyebrows. "You drew this today at the station." While I was waiting. "How long did you wait, Cassie?" She looked down at her plate. "I don't know. A long time. My mom told me not to leave the bench, not to talk to strangers, only to someone who really stopped. Someone who saw me. And did she tell you how you'd know who that person was?" Cassie lifted her eyes to mine. She said I would feel it. Pause. And I did. I kept turning the pages. There were drawings of streets, buildings, people, a dog, clearly Moose, flowers, stars, and then something that made me stop. A door, drawn several times, on different pages, always the same door, closed, and in some drawings there was a shadow on the other side. A dark silhouette, faceless, with shoulders that were far too broad. "Who is this person?" I asked, pointing. Cassie quickly pulled the notebook back and closed it with force. "No one." "Cassie, I'm tired. Can I go to sleep now?" She wasn't tired. She was running from the question, but something in the way her eyes widened, in the way her hands trembled, told me I shouldn't push. Not yet. "Of course. Let's go." I walked her upstairs to the bedroom, fixed the blankets, turned on a small lamp so it wouldn't be too dark. Moose jumped on the bed without asking and curled beside Cassie like a giant ball of golden fur. "Does he always sleep with you?" I asked. "Always. He protects me." "Protects you from what?" She didn't answer. She only snuggled closer to the dog. "Helen?" she called, just as I was about to leave the room. "Yes. If someone comes looking for me, you won't let them in, right?" I went back to the bed, sat on the edge, and held her little hand. "No one comes into this house without my permission, Cassie. No one." "Promise?" said the little girl. "I promise." She closed her eyes, but kept holding my hand. I stayed there until I was sure she was asleep. Then I left the room silently. I went down to my office, picked up the note again, turned on the desk lamp, and examined it carefully. The handwriting was shaky, rushed. There were smudges, maybe from tears. I held the paper up to the light, and that's when I saw it. There was something written underneath, almost invisible, in pencil, very faint, as if someone had written it and then tried to erase it, but not completely. I grabbed a magnifying glass, strained my eyes, and read, "If she's found, he will find her too." My blood ran cold. If she's found, he will find her too. Who was he? And why on earth would a mother leave her daughter in a public place if she believed that doing so would put the girl in danger? Unless she had no choice. Unless every other option was worse. Unless she was being followed, threatened, cornered. And suddenly, all the pieces started to make sense. The trained dog, the fear, the marks, the repeatedly drawn door, the faceless shadow. Cassie wasn't just lost. She was hiding. I grabbed my phone, ready to call the police. But then I hesitated. What would I say? "I found an abandoned child and I think she's running from someone. And what if by reporting it, I accidentally put Cassie in danger? What if this he had connections, resources? And what if the mother left Cassie with me precisely because she knew involving authorities was risky?" I sat in the armchair in my office, the note trembling in my hand, and I made a decision. I would wait, at least until the next day. Christmas. I would give that girl a proper Christmas, a safe one. And then I would figure out what to do. But as I put the note away in the drawer, I heard a noise outside. A car driving far too slowly down the street. Much too slowly. I stood up, turned off the office light, and peeked through the curtain. A dark sedan, tinted windows, parked right in front of my house. My heart raced. The car stayed there for almost a minute. Then it sped off and disappeared around the corner. I locked the office door, walked quickly upstairs, passed by Cassie's room. She was sleeping soundly, Moose beside her. I went into my room, locked the door, and stayed awake all night, watching through the window. Waiting. Have you ever had that feeling, that chill down your spine, that something was wrong, even if you couldn't explain why? Sometimes our instincts know things our minds haven't processed yet. I woke up to a smell I hadn't felt in years, fresh coffee. I went down the stairs slowly, still groggy from a sleepless night, and found Cassie in the kitchen. She had dragged a chair to the counter, climbed on top of it, and was trying to reach the coffee maker. "Cassie!" I rushed to her, lifting her down. "You could have fallen." "Sorry," she murmured, embarrassed. "I just wanted to make coffee for you, as a thank you." My heart melted. "You don't need to thank me, sweetheart. But let's do it together, okay?" We made coffee, toast, scrambled eggs. Moose got pieces of bacon that Cassie insisted on sharing with him. The morning was bright, cold, with that special glow only Christmas has. Outside, the snow that had fallen overnight covered the yard like a perfect white blanket. "It's Christmas," Cassie said, looking out the window with shining eyes. "My mom said Christmas is when good things happen." She's right. Do you think she's okay? The question caught me off guard. I think so. I think she did what she did because she loves you very much. Cassie nodded, but I saw the tears forming in her eyes. I wish she was here. I know, honey. I know. After breakfast, I took Cassie to the living room. The huge Christmas tree I had completely ignored for weeks now suddenly made sense. I turned on the lights, put on some soft Christmas music, and for the first time in 12 years, my house felt alive. Do you have presents? Cassie asked, looking under the tree where there was absolutely nothing. I do, I answered with a mysterious smile, but they're hidden. I went upstairs to that locked room, the room where I kept all the presents I bought and never gave. I opened the door. The smell of gift wrap and loneliness hit me like a punch. Shelves full of wrapped boxes, toys, books, clothes, all sorted by age, by year, by a hope that never came true. I chose 3 gifts: a handmade stuffed bear, a set of professional colored pencils, and an illustrated fairy tale book. When I came downstairs, Cassie was drawing on the sofa. Moose was sleeping at her feet, snoring softly. "Merry Christmas," I said, extending the presents. Her eyes widened. "For me. For you." She opened them slowly, carefully, as if each piece of paper were precious. When she saw the bear, she hugged it tight. When she saw the pencils, her hands trembled with emotion. And when she saw the book, she looked at me with those huge eyes filled with tears. No one has ever given me a real Christmas present. I sat beside her, put my arm around her small shoulders. "Now you have." She snuggled against me, and we stayed like that for a while. Just the 2 of us, the dog snoring, the tree glowing, snow falling outside, and for the first time in so long, I felt at home. But the peace didn't last long. Around 3 in the afternoon, the doorbell rang. Moose jumped up, growling low. Cassie froze, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't open it," she whispered. "Please, don't open it." "Stay here," I ordered, with a calm I didn't know I had. I went to the door and looked through the peephole. It was a man, tall, broad shoulders, dark coat. He rang the bell again. Moose's growl grew louder. "Who is it?" I asked, without opening. "Delivery service, ma'am. I have a package for Helen Crawford." "I didn't order anything." "It's from an anonymous sender. I need a signature." Something in his tone. Something was wrong. Very wrong. "Leave it on the porch. I'll get it later." Silence. Then his voice hardened. "I need your signature in person, ma'am." "Then take it back." I heard footsteps walking away. I ran to the living room window, moved the curtain slightly. The man didn't get into any delivery truck. He got into a dark sedan, the same sedan I had seen the night before. He stayed there, parked, staring at the house for almost 2 minutes. Then he drove off. I went back to the living room. Cassie was curled up on the sofa, hugging Moose, shaking. "Was it him?" I asked, kneeling in front of her. She shook her head, but her hands were trembling violently. "I don't know. I didn't see. But Moose knows. Moose always knows." I looked at the dog. He was still tense, alert, eyes fixed on the door. "Cassie, I need you to tell me. Who is looking for you? Who is he?" She started crying. Loud, desperate sobs. "I can't say. My mom said if I say, he'll know. He always knows." "Honey, look at me." I held her little face in my hands. "You're safe here, but I need to know what we're protecting ourselves from." She took a deep breath, wiped her tears. "He hurt my mom. All the time. And when I tried to help, he locked me in the room with Moose, and we listened to the screams." Her voice broke. "My mom tried to run before, but he always found us. He has friends, people who help him, who tell him where we are. And this time she left me, so I could stay hidden, so he wouldn't find me. She said she was going to disappear too, to a place he would never look, and that when everything was safe, she'd come back. But you don't know where she is. Cassie shook her head. She didn't tell me. She said it was safer that way. I grabbed my cell phone. I'm calling the police. No. Cassie gripped my arm. My mom said not to trust the police. She said he knows people there. I stopped, looked at her, at those terrified eyes, and I believed her, because I'd seen cases like this. Stories on the news. Women who reported, who begged for help, and ended up dead because someone leaked information, because the system failed, because the abuser had connections. I put my phone away. Okay, I won't call, not yet. What do we do then? I looked at that small, brave, terrified girl, and I made the most insane and most right decision of my life. We stay here, locked in, and we wait. Wait for what? A sign, anything. Your mother will contact us. I know she will. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I stayed in the office, lights off, watching the street. The dark sedan didn't return, but I knew, deep in my soul, I knew that this was far from over. And then, at 3:15 a.m., my phone vibrated. Unknown number. I hesitated, answered. Hello? Silence. Then a woman's voice, weak, trembling. Is she okay? My heart stopped. Are you her mother? Is she okay? Please. I need to know. She's safe. She's with me. A sob on the other end. Thank you. I couldn't call before. He was following me. But now I managed to disappear. Please take care of her. Just a little longer. I'll come for her. I promise. When? I don't know. But I will. The call dropped. I sat there, holding the phone, my heart racing, and I knew, in that moment, that that woman was in danger. And that Cassie was at the center of a war I was only beginning to understand. If you were Helen, what would you do? Call the police and risk information leaking, or trust your instincts and protect the girl on your own? Tell me your opinion. The days following Christmas were the most tense of my life. Every car that passed down the street made me jump. Every strange noise put me on alert. I slept with my phone in my hand, the alarm system armed, and a kitchen knife under my pillow. Ridiculous, I know. But it gave me the illusion of control. Cassie, on the other hand, seemed to be blooming. She didn't talk about the man at the door anymore. She didn't ask about her mother. It was as if she had decided to live in the present, inside that little refuge my house had become. She drew all day long. She created a mural on her bedroom wall, a massive panel made of craft paper showing the entire house from above like a living map. Every room drawn with impressive precision, and in the center, 3 figures, her, Moose, and me. It's our fortress, she explained, her smile tiny. As long as we're inside, nothing bad can happen. I wanted to believe that. On the 3rd day after Christmas, something happened that made me question everything. I was making lunch when the house landline rang. The landline. No one had called that number in years. I answered, suspicious. Hello? Silence. But not the empty kind. It was a heavy silence, breathing on the other end. Who is this? Nothing. If you don't speak, I'm going to hang up. Then, a man's voice. Deep, calm, way too calm. I know she's there. My blood froze. Who? You know who. And I know where you live. Helen Crawford. Beautiful mansion. Evanston. Quiet street. Huge yard. Must be easy to get in at night, isn't it? I hung up, my hands shaking, my heart racing. How did he know my name? My address? How did he get my number? I ran to the living room. Cassie was drawing. unaware of everything. Moose lifted his head, looked at me, and went back to sleep. I grabbed my cell phone, called the only number I had, Cassie's mother, straight to voicemail. I called again. Again. Nothing. I was alone. Completely alone. That night, I made a decision. I needed help, but I couldn't go to the police, not with Cassie's mother's warning, so I called Marcus, the lawyer who had worked with Richard for years. He was discreet, trustworthy, and owed me a few favors. "Helen," he said, surprised. "Merry late Christmas. I thought you—" "Marcus, I need help," I cut in, "and I need absolute discretion." I explained everything. The note, the girl, the threatening phone call. He was silent for a long time. "Helen, you understand the gravity of this, right? If this child was abandoned, or if there's a domestic violence situation involved, you're stepping into extremely complicated waters. Legally speaking, you should have reported this immediately." "I know," I said firmly, "but something tells me that if I do that now, I might be putting her in even more danger." Her mother called me, Marcus. She asked me to protect her daughter. She said she couldn't trust authorities. Based on what? Based on real fear. You should have heard her voice. He sighed. "All right, I'll see what I can find." "Child's name?" "Cassie, no last name, around 7 or 8 years old. Brown hair, dark eyes." "You're asking me to find a needle in a haystack, Helen." "I know, but you're good at this." He muttered something, but agreed to help. 2 days later, Marcus called back. His voice was tense. "Helen, we need to talk, in person." "You found something?" "Not over the phone." He came to the house that same afternoon, walked in quickly, refused coffee, got straight to the point. "I found something, and it's not good." "Go on." "There's a record of a withdrawn report filed 6 months ago. A woman named Sarah Brennan filed a complaint against her husband for domestic assault. But she withdrew the complaint a week later. Said it had been a misunderstanding." He paused. "Sarah has a daughter. Full name, Cassandra Marie Brennan, 7 years old. Cassandra. Cassie. Where do they live?" "They lived in Gary, Indiana, but the address is empty now. Neighbors said Sarah vanished about 3 weeks ago. Took her daughter and the dog. No one knows where she went." "And the husband?" Marcus hesitated. "That's the problem, Helen. His name is David Brennan. 52. Owns a mechanic shop. And he has connections." "What kind of connections?" "The kind that make reports disappear. The kind that make investigations get closed. There are 2 officers in Gary who were seen at his shop several times. Off duty." My stomach twisted. "You're telling me that—" "I'm telling you that if you report this now, without solid proof, without a plan, you might be handing that child directly over to him." Marcus looked me in the eye. "And Helen?" "He's searching. There are records of calls he made to hospitals, shelters, schools. He didn't file an official missing child report, but he's digging." "How did he get my number?" "I don't know, but if he has contacts, it's not hard. A private investigator, maybe. Someone who tracked the girl to you." I sat heavily in the armchair. What do I do? First, keep the child hidden. Don't leave the house. Don't expose her. Second, I'll file an emergency request for temporary custody, claiming abandonment and imminent danger. Third, we need to find the mother, because without her testimony, it's your word against his, and he's convincing. That night, I went up to Cassie's room. She was sleeping deeply, curled up with Moose. The old doll she held the day we met lay beside her pillow. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at that little girl who had turned my world upside down, and I whispered, "I'm not letting anyone take you, Cassie. I promise." But as I said it, I heard a noise outside, a car, driving slowly, very slowly. I ran to the window, pulled the curtain aside. The dark sedan was back, parked in front of the house. lights off. A silent threat. I stood there, watching, my heart pounding. And then the driver's door opened. I ran down the stairs, my heart pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. I locked every door again, checked the windows, grabbed my phone with trembling hands and stood frozen in the hall, waiting for what I didn't know. Seconds crawled by like hours, and then the doorbell rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Moose tore down the stairs, growling in a way I had never heard before. A deep, guttural growl that made every hair on my body stand up. "Helen!" Cassie's terrified voice came from upstairs. "Helen! Stay in the bedroom!" I shouted back. "Lock the door!" The doorbell rang again, insistent. I took a deep breath, held my phone, dialed 911, but didn't press call. Not yet. I stepped closer to the door and looked through the peephole. It was him, the large man with broad shoulders and a dark coat, but this time I could see his face, 40s, maybe early 50s. Square jaw, cold eyes, and a smile that wasn't anywhere near friendly. "What do you want?" I shouted through the door. "I just want to talk, Mrs. Crawford." "About what?" "About my daughter." Ice ran through my veins. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I think you do. Cassandra, 7 years old, brown hair, with a dog." He paused. "I know she's in there." "You're mistaken." "No, I'm not, and you know that." His voice hardened. "Look, I get it. My ex probably told you things. She's unstable, has issues, and she put ideas in my daughter's head. I just want to take her home, where she belongs." "If she belongs with you, why didn't you go to the police?" Silence. Then that cold smile again. "Because I know how these things go. Bureaucracy, delays. And meanwhile, my daughter is with a stranger." He stepped closer to the door. "Open the door, Helen. Let's handle this like adults. Get off my property, now." "Or what?" "You'll call the police." He laughed, a humorless, chilling sound. "Go ahead, but when they get here, it'll be my word against yours, and I'm the father. I have rights. You're just a lonely woman who kidnapped a child." I pressed the call button. 911, what's your emergency?" "There's a man trying to force his way onto my property," I said loudly enough for him to hear. "He's threatening to break in. I need help immediately." I heard footsteps backing away. I checked the peephole. He went back to his car, but he didn't leave. He stayed, waiting. 10 minutes later, 2 patrol cars arrived. The officers talked to him. He pointed at my house, gesturing calmly, looking rational. One of the officers approached my door. "Mrs. Crawford, may I speak with you?" I opened the door but kept the security chain in place. "Yes?" "The gentleman over there says his daughter is here, that his ex-wife abandoned the child and you're refusing to return her." "The child is under my temporary protection. She was found abandoned in a mall on Christmas Eve, and this man showed up here making threats." "Did you report the abandonment?" I hesitated. Fatal mistake. "I haven't yet, but I will." The officer exchanged glances with his partner. "Ma'am, if there's a minor here and you didn't report it, that's a problem. I'm going to need you to open the door." "Not without a warrant." "Ma'am, I know my rights, and I won't open this door without a warrant. If you want to come in, come back with a court order." The officer sighed. "Okay, but we will have to come back. And in the meantime," he looked toward David Brennan, who was calmly watching from his car. "He has every right to take this to court, and by law, if he's the father." "I understand." "Thank you, officer." I shut the door and leaned against it, shaking. The officers returned to their cars, spoke with David a bit longer, and finally left. David stayed 5 more minutes, just staring at my window. Then he got in his car and drove off. But I knew, deep in my soul, he'd be back. I ran upstairs to Cassie's room. She was curled up on the bed, clinging to Moose, crying. "It was him, wasn't it?" she sobbed. I recognized his voice. I sat on the bed and wrapped her in my arms. "He's gone, and he's not going to take you, I promise." "But the police, they believed him, didn't they?" I couldn't lie. "Some of them did." "That's because he's good at it," she said, her voice bitter, far too old for 7 years. "He convinces everyone. Everyone thinks he's nice, that my mom is crazy. But I saw what he does when no one else is looking." I held her face in my hands. "I believe you, Cassie, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to protect you, even if it means fighting him, especially if it means fighting him." And the next morning, Marcus came back, and this time he brought a woman with him. Thin, her hair in a tight bun, serious expression. She introduced herself as Denise, a social worker. "Marcus told me everything," she said, sitting in the living room. "I need to assess the child's situation. Can I see her?" I hesitated. "Are you going to take her?" "That depends on what I find. But if she's well cared for, safe, and there's evidence of real danger in sending her back to her father, I can recommend emergency temporary custody in your favor." I called Cassie. She came down slowly, holding her doll. Moose followed her. Denise spoke with her for almost an hour, alone. When she came out of the room, her eyes were red. "That child cannot go back to that house," she said firmly. "Not while I'm breathing. I'll file the paperwork today. And the father, he'll fight. But so will we. And we have something he doesn't. The truth." 3 days later, there was a preliminary hearing. David Brennan was there, in a suit, hair neatly combed, the picture of a concerned father. He had hired an expensive lawyer, claimed I had kidnapped his daughter. That Sarah was unstable, that it was all lies. Marcus countered with facts, the bruises, the note, the state Cassie had been in when she was found. Denise testified, but the turning point came when the judge asked to speak with Cassie. She entered the courtroom, tiny, but with her head held high. David tried to smile at her. She turned her face away. 15 minutes later, she came out, pale but steady. "What did he ask you?" I whispered. "He asked if I was scared." She looked at me. I told him the truth. The judge returned with the decision half an hour later. "Considering the testimony, the evidence of a hostile domestic environment, and most importantly, the minor's statement, I rule in favor of emergency temporary custody for Mrs. Helen Crawford until further investigation is completed. Mr. Brennan may appeal, but for now, the child remains in Mrs. Crawford's care." David shot up, furious. He yelled something. Security moved toward him. Marcus squeezed my arm, smiling. "You did it, Helen." But the story wasn't over, because 2 weeks later, on a cold January morning, the doorbell rang. I opened the door, and there she was, Sarah, thin, pale, with a healed cut above her eyebrow, but alive. "Helen," she whispered, I came to get my daughter." I called Cassie. When she saw her mother, she froze for a second, just one. Then she ran, screaming, crying, and threw herself into Sarah's arms. They collapsed on the floor, holding each other, sobbing. I stood there, watching, my heart tight but full. Because yes, it meant Cassie would leave, but it also meant she was safe. Free. Sarah looked up at me. But there was something Sarah needed to tell me, something I didn't know. That afternoon, after Cassie fell asleep on the couch, exhausted from crying tears of joy, Sarah sat with me in the kitchen. Her hands trembled around the cup of tea. And then she spoke. She told me that on that night, Christmas Eve, she hadn't just left Cassie at the mall out of fear. She'd made an impossible choice, either die trying to protect her daughter or give her up to fate and pray for a miracle. "I was being followed," Sarah said, her voice breaking. "David found out I was going to run. He cornered me in the mall parking lot. He hit me. He told me that if I didn't go home with Cassie, he'd kill us both right there. So I begged, told him I was going to get her from the bathroom. He waited in the car, and I ran. I went inside, grabbed Cassie, and in 2 minutes made the most painful decision of my life. She looked at me, her eyes heavy with guilt no mother should ever carry. I saw you. I saw you stop. I saw you truly look at her, and in that second, I knew God had heard me. Because I prayed, Helen, I prayed for someone good, someone strong, someone who wouldn't give up on her. And you appeared. Tears streamed down her face. You were my answered prayer. I didn't know what to say, because all those days I thought I had saved Cassie. But the truth was that 3 women, a desperate mother, a brave child, and a lonely widow, had saved each other. Sarah had given up her greatest treasure, trusting that a stranger would do what she couldn't. Cassie had given me back something I thought had died, purpose, and I learned that Christmas wasn't about full tables or wrapped gifts. It was about doors that open when you least expect it. Do you know why I left that note? Sarah asked, pulling a folded paper from her pocket. I wrote 2, one for whoever found Cassie and one for myself. She opened it. With shaky handwriting, it said, "If you're reading this, Sarah, it means you were strong enough to let her go, to trust. Now be strong enough to return. She needs you, and you deserve to live." She put the note away, wiping her tears. I spent 3 weeks hiding, afraid, wanting to die. But every night I read that note, and I remembered I had a daughter waiting, a daughter who deserved a living mother, not a dead martyr. So I fought. I gathered evidence, recorded conversations, found witnesses, and finally, they opened an investigation. And in that moment, I understood the true meaning of that Christmas. It wasn't the snow, or the tree, or the gifts beneath it. It was 3 women who, each in her own way, chose to believe that something good was still possible. Sarah believed a stranger would save her daughter. Cassie believed someone would see her. And I believed there was still life inside me. That there was still love, still time. You know what's crazy? Sarah said with a small, sad smile. I never believed in Christmas. I thought it was all fake, marketing, pretend. But that night, when I left my daughter on that bench, I looked up at the sky and did something I hadn't done in years. And my prayer wasn't save my daughter. It was send someone who needs her as much as she needs someone. I looked at Sarah, then at Cassie, asleep on the couch with Moose curled beside her, and I realized there wasn't just one miracle. There were 3 lost women who found each other at precisely the right moment. 3 lives intertwined on a cold December night. 3 hearts learning that the greatest gift we can give and receive is to truly be seen. Thank you for seeing her, Sarah repeated, holding my hand, for saving her, for being the person I prayed would find her. Then, with a steady voice, but more than that, thank you for letting her save you too. Because that's what happened, isn't it? You saved each other. I just nodded, unable to speak. My throat was tight with tears I didn't know I still had. That night, after Sarah and Cassie left, Sarah had rented a small apartment 20 minutes away, a modest but safe new beginning. I stayed alone in the living room. The Christmas tree was still up, even though it was mid-January. I hadn't taken it down, because for the first time in 12 years, that tree meant something. I went upstairs to the room that had been Cassie's. The mural was still on the wall. The drawing of the 3 of us. The fortress, as she called it. I ran my fingers over the lines, the bright colors. She hadn't just drawn a map of the house. She had drawn a map of belonging, of home. I walked to the locked room downstairs, the one filled with gifts that had never been given. I opened the door for the first time since Christmas, and instead of sadness, I felt gratitude. Because all those gifts, all that hope wrapped in paper, had finally found meaning. One of them had ended up in the right hands, and that changed everything. I called my kids, both of them, for the first time in months, not to guilt them, not to complain, just to say I loved them, and that I understood. Life is busy, chaotic, overwhelming, but the door to my home was open, always, without guilt, without resentment, just open. My oldest son, Thomas, went quiet for a moment, then said something that broke me and healed me all at once. "Mom, I'm sorry for not seeing how lonely you were, for not being there." And we cried together on the phone, something we hadn't done since my husband's funeral. Marcus called a few days later with updates on David Brennan's case. The investigation had uncovered more victims, other women, more abuse. And thanks to Sarah's courage and Cassie's testimony, he would finally be held accountable. "You did more than save a child, Helen," Marcus said. "You helped break a pattern that's been going on for years. But I didn't do anything extraordinary. I just looked. I just saw. I just chose not to turn away. And it made me wonder, how many times do we turn away? How many Cassies cross our path every day, sitting on benches, silently begging to be seen, and we just walk by, busy, distracted, blind. The real miracle of my Christmas was my rebirth, the moment I chose to see a forgotten little girl on a mall bench. Every time someone chooses to stop, every time someone believes they can still make a difference, no matter their age, scars, or disappointments, that's what matters. And today, when I look at the old doll Cassie gave me, now resting on a shelf beside Richard's photo, I smile. Because now I understand. My life didn't end when my husband died. It didn't end when my kids drifted away. It didn't end when the grandkids never came. My life was waiting. Waiting for the right moment. Waiting for that little girl. Waiting for that dog. Waiting for me to finally wake up. "Thank you again," Sarah whispered. "Thank you for seeing her, for saving her, for being the person I prayed would find her." "She saved me too," I answered, holding her hands. Today, 6 months later, Cassie visits me every weekend. Sarah works at a school, has a restraining order against David, who is under investigation for multiple charges. And the house, it's not empty anymore. Because I learned something. Family isn't who gave you life. It's who sees you, who chooses to stay, who fights for you. And that Christmas, in the middle of a crowded mall, I found my family. Do you believe some people come into our lives exactly when we need them, or when they need us? Tell me in the comments. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel, leave a like, and share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late to begin again, to love again, to be seen. Thank you for being here.